So this is big news. It's going to be breaking on Wednesday. Why now for Rite Aid?
Well, as I was talking to Kathy earlier, is we have, when I first, putting aside that I love Bartell's in Seattle, we lived there. My daughter went to UW. Was a Bartell's, rabid Bartell's fan when I was there. So, that's in the back of my head. So I come to Rite Aid, and one of the first things I did actually when I got here was go visit the stores in Seattle. And and we look at all the demographics of our markets across the country. We are basically from Virginia up the East Coast, Ohio, Michigan, and then up and down the whole West Coast. We have the whole West Coast covered. And so in my mind, we needed to target, really double down in some of our markets, determine what are our high priority markets, determine how we're going to be number one or number two in a market in terms of, presence and community presence and customer loyalty, and how are we going to be stronger as a healthcare provider in a market, not just retail, but we're pharmacies, and how are we going to be a stronger, more connected healthcare provider in the marketplace? Who are we going to form relationships with? I worked for Premier Blue Cross, and know the hospitals, know the health plans, obviously, and how could we be more connected? How can we serve the health plans, serve the health systems as a pharmacy provider? And then how do we grow? How are we going to target growth markets where there's more population growth, where our target growth customer, women between the ages of, let's say, 25 and in their 40s, who are caring for their parents, their pets, and their kids. Though that's the growth market. Where are those people, and where are those people who care about whole being health, better for you products, organic, the environment, social justice, all of the things that are our values. And when you do that, essentially, let's call it an algorithm, when you look at all those different factors, Seattle comes to the very top. And so was very clear to us that this was one of the most important growth markets for us. And then along comes Bartell. I mean, I just couldn't believe that we could actually have the opportunity to be a part of, and have Bartell's be a part of Rite Aid. And so it was just, from my point of view, kind of meant to be. And so the minute I heard about this, I said, oh, this is a perfect fit. It's a fit of values. It's a fit of the right market, and it's a fit of the right kind of merchandising strategies. And that's one of the main reasons also that we don't want to change the brand.
Yeah, who approached whom in this in this situation, in this deal?
Well, they were for sale, so they, their bankers or whatever approached us. But they were talking, I'm sure, to other people. I can't comment on them, but they were, I believe, going through the process, and we heard about it.
Yeah, given the synergies, I mean, the first question is going to be, there's a lot of Rite Aids in Western Washington. There's a lot of Bartells in Western Washington. I haven't looked necessarily to map to see how close some of the stores are. But will there be consolidation, layoffs, store closures?
We don't anticipate any store closures. We fully intend to keep all of the Bartells and their associates in the stores. We also very much need and want their brand new distribution center and the associates that are there. The synergies really come from what I'll call the bigger ticket items, which are moving to our state-of-the-art pharmacy system and all of our other technologies. We just have purchasing power that they, could never have. I mean, we're, almost a $21 billion company. We have scale, we have purchasing power. And, we obviously purchase a lot of drugs and merchandise, and also the other synergies that would come with this kind of opportunity, not the stores, not the distribution centers. They're very precious to us. And they're, we really are sort of generally in different areas. We're all of Washington. They're mostly Seattle proper. We're way up into Mukilteo, and so they're not as alike in terms of geography as you might imagine.
Will there be a consolidation of everybody's working from home right now, but you have offices in Pennsylvania, they have offices in Western Washington, some of that administrative staff. I mean, does that eventually get consolidated if this deal does get approved by the federal government?
There are about 70 people that I would say are in their corporate office that aren't, touching the field or touching a distribution center, where they would have equal standing with our corporate associates, because no longer do we need people in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. So if they have a great accountant, we might need a great accountant, and we don't need the accounting team to be in central Pennsylvania anymore. So, but we certainly will have to look at that overlap. It's a fairly small amount of their associates, and it's not the key driver of efficiencies, but certainly, you don't need 2 heads of HR, for example. So, but one thing that I think is important for everyone to know is, listen, we're always looking for good people and good leaders, and now we need them everywhere. And so it's not, I don't want anyone to assume that because they're a Bartell corporate associate that they don't have an opportunity to interview for a position.
So what will people notice? I understand that you still need the government approval, the deal's signed, but those approvals could take you through the end of the year. What will people notice in terms of a difference or a change inside any of the Bartell's locations?
Well, we can, walk you through, Jeff can walk you through the details of how the approvals are going to work, because there is no Hart-Scott-Rodino approval as we understand it. We think that we obviously will operate independently and begin our transition planning. We anticipate that this would close in the mid to later December timeframe. So we don't think this is a particularly elongated process. And obviously nothing's going to change in the meantime, because we're not going to close on the deal until then.
And then after that in 2021?
I think, we have a lot to learn from Bartell's. They're very hyper local. They have some really super merchandise. They were like us. When I got to the company, we were already considering this, but we pushed very hard as we could into CBD, into, organics. We have a lot to learn from Bartell's. They've been doing this for a very long time with great success. And so we view the merchandising as an opportunity for us to consider maybe more of a joint, I shouldn't say joint, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't take some of their merchandise into our stores and vice versa. But obviously it's too early to tell. The brand, the signage is Bartell's. So I don't think in the short term you would see a significant change. I think it's more over the long term, how can the two of us learn to be stronger together?